Hello athletes, Tony Bevilacqua coming at you today from a walk in the park. And the cool thing is on Mondays, the park is closed. So I have to park outside of the park and walk in because there's a gate at the front. And I walk in, there's never anybody here. Like it's this amazing park and my car is like way down there and the park is like way up there. So it's just this really incredible thing. So it's kind of like, I feel like I have this whole, like this private park. It's really cool. So anyways, so I like come out here and I do a lot of work and stuff out here and I'll do some videos and it's just a nice time for me just to kind of like decompress. So anyways, hope that you're doing well. That's probably not why you're here, but I did want to just jump in here and just talk about something that was on my mind regarding nutrition, because I've been posting a lot of stuff about fitness, but let's face it, a big part of you being the best version of yourself, of you being the most high performance version of yourself, because I'm always interested in human performance. And I believe that the better that we perform as human beings physically, right? The better that we do physically, the more we hedge ourselves against the aging process, right? Like if I can really enhance my performance, it's much, much harder for me to decline, right? The normal aging process usually ends with us in a walker and someone taking care of us in a nursing home, right? So if we can hedge ourselves away from that as much as possible, there is the answer to, I'm not going to say longevity, but health span, right? It's your ability to be able to take care of yourself for this entire life, right? Again, I always tell people like I'm going to live to be 120, but I'm not interested in living to 120 if 20 of those years are going to be in a nursing home with somebody else taking care of me, right? Because that's not really living, right? I only want to live to be 120 if I can take care of myself. So that's why one of the reasons that I decide to do the things that I do, to eat good foods, to exercise every day, to think good thoughts, to be a positive human being, to try to help others on the journey, right? This is why I do this, or at least one of the reasons why I do this. So again, off the rails a little bit there, but I think it's important with nutrition that we find something that's going to be sustainable, because if you read a book, if you go on YouTube, if you look at diets, if you work with a dietitian, and I've done all of these things. I've done these things before, but the thing that I find is that it's usually a flash in the pan solution. A flash in the pan solution means, okay, I got the protocol, I understand it, and now I have to follow that protocol. And when you follow the protocol, you get the result, right? Whether it's macros or counting calories or, I don't know, like there's so many different ones out there. Juicing, right? There's, doing different cleanses and things, right? Like it's a flash in the pan solution and you jump in, good chance you get results, but what always happens, and there's even statistics on this, like I forget what the number is, but it's something like 80% of the people that lose a bunch of weight, and I'm using weight loss as an example, but lose a bunch of weight, they gain it back in addition to extra weight. Right? So we know that these solutions work, but we also know that it's not a long-term solution. So how do we approach nutrition with a more long game approach, right? How do we really pin that down? And I'll tell you the number one thing that we cannot do, the number one mistake that a lot of people do is they think they have to be perfect. And again, I think that just goes back to the diet books and because they lay out these protocols and like they give you really, really strict meal plans. Like that's what the nutritionist does, right? They give you meal plans and then they, the books tell you about like, here's the types of food that you have to eat, or here's how many calories you have to be on. And if you fall off the wagon, if you don't follow the protocols exactly, then there's this mental thing where you sort of feel like you failed. And if you have a cheat day, one cheat day is like, oh, that sucks. Well, I'll just get back on the horse tomorrow. But then what ends up happening is like, it's really hard to go back to 100%, right? It's really hard to go back to perfect again after you've missed a full day. So then the next day you kind of do it, but you go back to old habits a little bit, right? And then the next day you're like, I'll try again, and maybe you have a good breakfast, but then everything kind of derails. The next thing you know, you're right back into your usual habits, your usual routines, right? So we have to really change, what do those routines need to look like, and how do we make them imperfect, right? And I said it, imperfect. Like your nutrition should not be perfect. If it's perfect, I'm much more skeptical about the guy who comes to me and tells me I eat perfect every day, because I'm like, oh shit, like you're gonna derail. And when you do derail, right, what is that gonna look like? And then I want to know, like, what were your old habits like? Because if you're perfect and you derail, you're going to go back to your old habits. What do those habits look like? right? I don't know anybody that's been perfect for a long period of time, and I hang around with a lot of people who are in amazing shape and look amazing, right? And they don't follow a specific nutrition plan to perfection. So you have to allow yourself some imperfection, right? And we've got a simple way, we've got a framework that we use in Athletic After 40 that shows you exactly what you need to do, and everybody's gonna be a little bit different. I wish it was just a broad brush approach, right? The framework is there, but we do have to kind of play with it a little bit to figure out what's gonna work best for you. And even for me, I was the guy who was perfect for many, many years, especially as I was going through my cancer episode. And now I do believe that there's a time and a place for perfect, right? If you lose your health and it's like, you got to get your health back, then there's a time where maybe you need to be perfect, right? But just to live a healthy life for a healthy guy, a guy who's already pretty healthy, to live a healthy life in a body that looks good, that doesn't carry a lot of excess body fat, you don't have to be perfect, right? So I learned this and I discovered this myself because when I came out of cancer, I'm like, look, I can't keep doing what I was doing. I spent 3 years being perfect. I have the record, as far as I know, for how long somebody's ever been perfect. At least personally, what I know, right? Maybe you know somebody that's perfect longer. I don't know, but introduce me. I really want to know who they are, right? So as far as I'm concerned, I've got the record, 3 years, perfect eating, right? And once I got through that, I'm like, you know what? I can't keep doing perfect. Like I have to simplify this whole thing. I have to make this easier. And I started testing things with some other people and started testing some different strategies with some other people, and I noticed they got really good results, and they were still having a beer, they were still eating a piece of pizza. And then I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's a thing. Like maybe, but then to what level of indiscretion can you really have and still have some results, right? And this is the lab. I call it the lab. Like the lab that I've been in has been the gym. It's been playing with these things and tweaking these things. I've been in the lab as a scientist, playing with this stuff on other people and myself, and we've kind of figured it out, right? Like we've got some frameworks, some ideas of how to get someone to a level that's going to serve them best for the long period, right? For the long duration. You have to have a long game perspective. It's so hard as Americans to have a long game perspective sometimes because we want results immediately, and we can get results pretty fast, especially when it comes to weight loss if we just starve ourselves, right? But we know that it's not going to stick around. So again, don't be perfect. Perfect is not the way to go, but we have to find out to what level do you have to be pretty good, right? So there is going to be some things that you likely need to change if you're not in a place that you're comfortable with, or if you're not in a place that you're happy with. If you've got 20 pounds of excess body fat on the system and you're not happy with that, then it's your responsibility to change it, to figure out what it's going to take to get yourself to where you're happy, right? Like you have to figure that out, right? And it's in your best interest to figure out a way that you can sustain, because otherwise you just go like happy, unhappy, happy, unhappy, happy, unhappy. And that's not a way to go, right? We want to take this one thing off your plate, right? Because there's lots of things that are going to make you unhappy and happy in your life. Let's remove the stress of nutrition and body fat and all that other stuff and performance and health and all those other things. Let's give you some frameworks, right? So anyway, so there you go. I just want to throw that out there because I talked to another gentleman who he did a MetaFast diet many years ago. And if you remember MetaFast, that was one of the shake. It was like a nutrition shake, and literally all you could have was like shakes. And he's like, oh my God, I lost like 30 pounds. And like, I actually felt pretty good. I'm like, that's amazing. How'd that go when you stopped? He's like, well, I gained it all back. Like, of course you did, So yeah, man, long game is the holy grail. Long game. All right.